I like to think that people who leave us get to exist somewhere.
27
27
questions.
questions,
27 weeks.
27
pedestrians.
pedestrians.
What do I think happens after we die? I'm a trans person, so I think a lot of people don't think that I'm religious, but I kind of have a very eclectic religion where I just take whatever I like from wherever I like. So I really don't know what happens, but I love the idea of reincarnation, in the sense of being rebirthed into something more beautiful and purposeful. Hopefully, I get to turn into a butterfly, but if not, I'm happy to help a tree grow.
From an Aboriginal cultural, spiritual standpoint, my spirit will continue to live on with the rest of my ancestors, caring for the land and looking after my people.
Personally, I just have a gut feeling that you come back again, like you have another lifetime. I don't know why. I'm actually not religious, but I just feel that's what will happen. Sometimes you feel connected to people and you're like, oh, I feel like I knew you in another lifetime before. And I believe that that is true.
I would like to believe that we all kind of reconnect somewhere else. I don't really like the idea that we're all sitting here working our asses off, connecting with people, and then you just turn into nothing. So hopefully we'll be raging somewhere else.
I was baptized Catholic, so I grew up with those beliefs, and I still do. I do believe in the afterlife, whether it's a physical place or a state of consciousness. I think it'd be silly to completely rule out the fact that there could be another dimension you travel to when you die.
I think my current stance on it would be probably that we restart, but maybe in a different time, just because I don't know how much there is to learn about humanity if the same people are living through the same time every single time they live. And I think I've picked reincarnation as kind of the thing I want to believe in, just because it feels a little bit more calming, that I'm going to get another chance. And if I remember, I can try and be a different person, and a better person, I guess, would be the thing that you would strive for.
It would be nice to think that there's something else, but I'm not sure that there is. Like, I've had some weird shit happen to me when, like, I've lost close people to me, and so I have, like, weird dreams and stuff. And it would be nice to think that, like, they're there, but I don't know.
I've always been pretty spiritual, and I've always thought that there was something else out there. I just didn't really know what it was. Unfortunately, about a decade ago, just over 10 years ago, my father passed away, and we spent a bit of time speaking to one of my mum's really close friends who's psychic, and she was explaining to us sort of more or less what happens after we die, and she was explaining, okay, Fletch, you've been alive for, at the time was 18 years, 17 years, and this isn't as long as you've known your father, it's not as long as you've known your mum, your siblings, anyone like that. You've known these people, you've been with your dad for multiple lifespans, and I've got no doubt whatsoever that just because it stops this time around, it doesn't mean it'll be the last time you ever see him and spend time with him.
I think that after you die, your spirit continues on. I don't know where you go, but I think that your spirit lives on somehow, some way, with the people that you're supposed to be with.
Yeah, one of my mates actually fell out of a building in Paris 4 stories up and died for 10 minutes, like literally flatline. And he just said when he died, it was just like darkness. And then he just woke up a few months later in the hospital. So there's not too many stories of people dying and coming back to life. And I'm pretty lucky to have that one. So I'm just going to say, yeah, it's just darkness.
I believe in some form of an afterlife. I just couldn't clearly tell you what, because I'm not dead. I haven't died yet. That's a bonus. But no, I believe in some form of afterlife and possibly some form of reincarnation, because there's definitely more to the universe than just living and dying.
I was raised Catholic and ticked all the Catholic boxes. That's kind of lapsed since I've gotten older. I like the idea of, the whole higher power thing, but I just don't think there's much going on there. And I think once you're dead, you're dead, you're finished. Thanks for coming.
When you work with animals, you kind of start to see them as little beings. I know that sounds crazy. Most people will think like, oh, sharks don't have feelings, or fish don't have thoughts, or they have really short memories. But the more you work with different animals and different species, and you see how much is out there that we don't know, it's very hard not to think that, oh, this animal was a different animal in a past life, or it was a human, or just the way they react to certain things. Sometimes they react to things that they should have absolutely no means to react to, but they do. So it's kind of hard not to think that there's definitely something, a higher power at work.
After we die, we travel through this like wormhole and we get to a space, it's like kind of like a limbo space, where we are kind of in a space with other consciousnesses, and we decide where to go for our next life. That is like legit hand to my heart what I believe.
I was raised a Hindu, so what I think happens after we die, if I asked me as a child, I'd say reincarnation based on your past deeds and how you lived your life and if you're a good person and what you still got left to learn. And then I guess I started a science degree, so currently I think that when we die, we decompose and become a great fertilizer for the soil around you, and that's it. You just leave something for a paleontologist to find.
I do somewhat believe in a religious afterlife, but also I'm a very practical person and I go with facts too. So I think for my own well-being, I convince myself there's something pretty cool afterwards, but practically, I'm not too sure.
I would like to think there is some sort of afterlife when you pass over or cross or whatever, but honestly, I think it's just nothingness. It's just black.
On the science side, I mean, like, our body decomposes and our energy is regenerated into other areas in the world. But on kind of the more spiritual side of things, I do think that there's a lot more for us to, like, see and to do. And not to say that this specifically is or is not an afterlife, but I think that there's a lot of hubris to say it's like, okay, we died, that's done. Cool, excellent. I think that there's a lot more in the world for us that's yet to be explored.
I want to live my life to the fullest in this one life, and I like to think that that will just mean that that's my shot. I know that scares some people. I know that some people might not want to know that they can't have a do-over, but like it gives me motivation to keep living every day as if it's my last, because it could be.
I don't actually know what happens after you die. I think something happens, but what it is, I couldn't tell you. Everyone's got their ideas, but I definitely think something happens. Just have no idea what it is.
Growing up in our lives, we create all these relationships and they're so meaningful and important to us that it would be really heartbreaking to think that there's nothing else for them afterwards.
What I got taught was that we always have a soul, and this sounds so airy-fairy, but I do think we go somewhere after we die, if that's heaven, if it's hell, if it's somewhere in between. I like to think that people who leave us get to exist somewhere.
I would like to be like my ashes planted with seeds so that a tree could grow, that kind of thing. I think that idea that no matter what happens to kind of your consciousness after you die, you're giving back to the earth in some way is just enough for me, if that makes sense.
So I think when after death, then we enter into a different state of consciousness that is different to the earthly realm and more rooted in like the fifth dimension.
Part of me would like to think that there's something spiritual that lives on and follows everyone around, like a little guardian angel. But the scientist in me also accepts the fact that that's probably not the case.
Hopefully there's less anxiety. Hopefully we'll go to a place where we don't have to worry about climate change or sexism. I think it'd be great if after we die we can go to a place where there's actual equality for everyone.
Yeah, what happens when you die? You just leave, hopefully, you leave good memories for like the people that you encountered when you were alive.